I should have the actual physical copies of Press Enterprise. You can get that.
All right, we'll supplement the record. Okay, so we'll mark the photograph of the posting on the field as exhibit 1 and the Press Enterprise advertising as number 2. Is that part of the record?
I'm Kevin Hale. Here on behalf of the applicant. We're very excited to present this to the council tonight. Exciting opportunity for everybody involved. We're here primarily because the ordinance states that all additions that exceed 50,000 square feet require conditional use approval by the council. I wanted to introduce you to Brandon Kotsko. He's the CEO of TechnoServe, who's going to speak more about this project and answer any questions you might have.
Yeah. So, TechnoServe has been in Berwick since 1982. At this location since 1995. I've heard this a lot. And we build equipment for the pharmaceutical industry. So we make machines that make the drugs. Some of the big blockbuster cancer drugs that you see on the TV right now, we make the machines in Berwick that make those drugs. It had a huge impact. So we have about 60,000 square feet. We have 8 employees currently, and we're looking to grow the business. On the lot we have, we want to take the lot and get about 12,000 square feet additional manufacturing space on the back side of the building. And some new offices in the front, spruce it up. And we're planning on adding 30 employees. So this is going to bring more jobs to Berwick, and it's good jobs. Good welder, electrician, engineer jobs. So, any questions?
I have a question for Larry. All councils charge is whether or not you can do real, get any details of how big it is, and not how big the addition is, but how tall it is. And that's up to the zoning.
Right, that's the basic.
And then you can ask, I think, first thing, obviously part of the project is going to require going through the planning commission and stormwater management. Yeah, there's stormwater management requirements as part of this project. They'll be determined by the zoning engineer, who's our planning commission and engineer and county planning comments. Yes. So we're well aware. We have Dark Construction brought on, and we have Peter Consulting to help us work through all the things that I don't know about.
Thank you for your investment.
So are there any further questions that might be better answered by Zombie Construction or Peter's Consultants?
There will be a public comment period, and if there are any useful questions that arise out of that, there could be further questions. So, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience that would care to speak to us on behalf of the residents of that anybody else about this public comment period now? I have to go there and speak. Yes, please. You still have to speak up a little bit when you have slight hearing problems. I think some of it's developed.
Please raise your right hand. Will you please raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. and spell your first and last name.
First name, John, J-O-A-N.
Thank you.
Last name, whether it's B-S or Victor, or B, B-R, that's it. I moved into Berwick, went into the home that I was presently still in 1972. That was approximately 54, 55 years ago. At that time, nothing existed outside of my home. To the back of where there's like an opening between the two buildings, between the manufacturing plant, and storage sheds. So it's like an echo in between that. Back at that time, several years after I moved into this home, I thought I had moved into paradise. Not only in the lovely borough of Berwick, there were so many nice people that I had met and everything else. I had lived in apartments in Mexico before that, and before that, up in a place called Dusher. I've been around the globe in here, that's okay. But anyhow, I'll try to make this as short and as brief as possible. A few years after I moved in, my neighbors, new neighbors came in. And we both looked at it and said, boy, this is really beautiful. It's nothing but forest. I didn't know what they meant by a test track. But I found out later, some people had lived there way before me. And it's where they tested the tanks for the water. We made a great contribution at that point. The neighbor and I spoke to each other and said, you know, I would very be upset if you didn't try to buy a little bit of this land. I'm not knowing what or who it belonged to anybody. He says, that's a great idea, because I don't want anybody infringing on me and coming in on my property. I have a pretty nice piece of property. I said, well, we need to go out maybe 10 feet more or something out of our property. Let's see what we can do. At that time, Coach, some council members, and my neighbor, who was I think he was a sergeant in the police force. And he approached and presented this. How do we go about buying a few more feet past our original title? And they were very adamant and strong about the response. That will never be for sale. And I questioned, I said, why? Why won't it be for sale? Because it is part of the test track and it belongs to the borough. It does not belong to anyone else, no private enterprise or anything like that. So he said, well, we'd like to buy some. It will never be for sale. You don't have to, we won't even sell it to you because you will never have to worry because it will never be that land. So why spend your money and buy it? It's not going to be for sale. Okay. I accepted that because it came from the council and they were the ruling body of that particular period of time. Lo and behold, 2 years later than that, all this stuff started coming up. Mind you, it was pristine land, all wooded, beautiful. You think you were part of the country and yet you're still in the borough. I said, boy, you couldn't ask for anything better than this. So I was very relieved, and then all of a sudden, overnight it seemed, big building and stuff like that. I know sheds came up on this side. Up further came some other industry. And I said, I thought this land, so Bob and I talked, I said, I thought this land was never for sale. He says, yeah. This is what it's like, right. And the right amount of money came across. The rules changed. They thought they were gonna better the community because it would bring in jobs. It would be a nice thing for them to have. And don't worry, it's light industry. Well, let's progress to what we are at now. I didn't even know what they made. And where is the gentleman that owns it? What kind of metal is used in your production and manufacturing?
Stainless steel.
Stainless steel. You're all familiar with stainless steel. That's a metal. That's a very heavy metal. So this is a manufacturing plant. I'm saying, it's zone, right? It's anything but that. I'm looking at this building that started, well, I can't, I'm just touching circumference. But it was a small, very small building. All of a sudden, in a few weeks, it like went about 5 times its size, including the back of that building, all of a sudden started up this high, above me, well above me. And it has no windows in there, nothing. It's all metal. I don't know what kind of, like aluminum or whatever, I don't know, shielded in, but it looks like a warehouse in the back. All this banging and building and everything else. And from the initial, when this place was put in, remind you, I lived here over 10 years before anything went in here. We never had a flooding problem. I'm saying never, and we lived through some hurricanes. If some of you people are a little older, you remember the big ones from Agnes and the Hazel and all those that came through. They were devastating. They destroyed communities. The water levels, I mean, that Susquehanna just went rampage. It almost wiped out all of Shimmy, the town itself, wiped out homes and everything else. All of a sudden, you just have a rainstorm. And it's an all-day rain. What the heck is going on in my backyard? It's flooding. Well, it looked pretty deep to me. So I put on my hip boots. I fished. And it went up to my knees. In the meantime, I wound up with 2 dogs that couldn't even wade through it. So I took pictures of that many years later because it would progress and progress and progress. It went across all my land in the back, and it went through to where a beautiful home is built in the back of my house. It's an all brick home. It flooded their driveway. It had to do also with where it was coming from. It not only flooded the back end of the home that was eventually, it went through the basement. It was hard. The water was very, very high in their basement. It ruined everything that they had, the people that were renting that particular home. Then it floated down the Montex driveway all the way down the street. It severely flooded several other homes. I showed pictures of my yard, and I begged, please, you gotta do something about this. Well, they tried, but you don't have the money for it and all this kind of thing. And I said, you know where it's coming from. So So I went to, are you the same owner from the beginning?
I'm Paul Heaps. I'm actually the property owner. And, yes, we did,
Okay, so you were the owner,
yes.
and you were the gentleman I tried to see. I went up to the front of
You
there,
you spoke with us several times, quite a few times over the years, yes, ma'am.
well, I was turned away. When I went up and asked, I said, because I need help. Then I guess they put in a dry well. But they never serviced the dry well. It's overgrown, it has weeds like not that high, and you can tell where it is, because it's the only area that looks like that. And that's where the water was, it flooded so bad, that if you went out there, you could hear it like a stream. You could hear a roar of water that was coming from it. And I said, oh my God, this is not good. Then I got, oh, well, there's nothing we can do this year, we can't do anything next year. Well, now there is. In fact, they just nicknamed my place, Park Place Lake. And I mentioned this when we had the hearings about I mean, it was so big, it's just, I couldn't care if you put trout in there, I would have been happy. But, not the way it, I mean, just ruin the land, and my land is like this now in the back. I had several borough managers that promised to do something. Sometimes their hands are tied too, they don't always get what they like to request. And they said, we want to help you out. Okay, but this is, we'll do some filling or whatever. Never happened, okay? Now we're at a couple of managers since then. You can see I've been here a long time. So they devised a prevented method which consisted of swales. I don't know how wide the ditch, it looks like a ditch. In fact, they took the neighbor backward on tunnels. They used public domain and cut their land right in half, right where they own the sheds too. And looking at it, oh, this is not pretty, but it does the job. You know, trees, everything has always been eliminated from that whole place. Okay, well, I'll let one of the, Mr. Monaco back there, there's two of them. They will speak to that after I finish. Where we got no assistance at that time, but we did have, they had a grant, so they moved ahead with devising this. As to whether it's effective, I don't know. I don't know. All right, getting to another area. You're working with stainless steel. Let's back up a little bit. I'm afraid that they sold this land. They said we were willing to pay for it. They wouldn't consider it. I'm sure they were promised good jobs and increased revenue for the local taxes and all that thing. But if you only knew the price that would be ultimately paid by having a plant like that, it would expose employees to heavy metals. It would explode the neighborhood as far as toxic. I will tell you an incident in particular. What has forced me to come here? I don't know if there's forever chemicals involved in the processes. I don't know anything about manufacturing. I don't know how to explain this, other than last month this started again. And when I get through my home, and it permeates through the entire house, it's usually after like 12:30 after midnight, is a pulsation sound. It's like 60 pulses per minute. This goes on for hours. That means every second you can count. It's a light pulse, but it has a shishing sound following it. If you can count the beats that are in that 1 minute, and then You can't, it startles you. It wakes you up like somebody put an alarm clock in your ear. I remember going out when this first started again this year. The summer can seem to phase in when temperatures start getting a little bit low. I said, oh my God, it sounds like either a pipe broke or something is shushing in the house, but it's beating like this. In my home home. I tried to go in another room, I couldn't sleep. That night it went on and on and on and on, and it stopped. I said, oh my God, this is horrible. And in the daylight, of course, it eased up, there wasn't anything. It's a very, very light sound, but it's a persistent thing, very, very light. I said, oh no, oh no. This, every week, it was going on every single day. I'll give you an instance of what happened to me this weekend. Friday the 13th, it must have been the 13th. It's, I was Friday morning after midnight. I got a very good rest. I fell asleep. I'm really sleepy for many days because I'm getting sick about it. And I went out to the grocery store, took my dog with me. So came back, I talked to several people, it took me 2 hours to get groceries because I met so many people I knew, so they gab and all that kind of stuff. I walked in the house, mind you, there was nothing happening until I walked in the house. So it was 1 o'clock. I got into the indoors. I was so, you know, I'm saying, oh God, I can't put up with this. I just cannot put up with this. It's just a noise element that you feel like, oh my God, it's getting me, it's getting me. That afternoon, I tried to go to sit down in the easy chair. It's like, I gotta relax a little. I took all the groceries and all that. And I said, I went to go to the chair, I start rocking, all of a sudden I'm going backwards. The room is spinning like this. I never in my entire life ever experienced anything like that. I couldn't catch, I couldn't grab something to balance myself. When I came backwards, I hit a dining room table with my elbow, I knocked that fly, and then I wound up, next thing I knew, I was flat on my back. My head on top of the floor. Thank God I had perfect. You know, and it was a gentle bang off the head. It was gentle, it was like the after effect because your body's sort of ready. It took me quite a while to get up because I had very bad knees. So, and I kept yelling at the dog a lot, good you are, you cannot get me back by myself. So, that kind of thing. Now, that night, this is a weekend, Saturday night, it was quiet. It was beautiful. I got a very good night's rest. I was so happy for this. Then it was softly, whatever it was turned on for about 30 minutes. It's like it has a timer on it. I can tell you the times and how long it lasts. So it was soft, and it was only about 30 minutes. Okay, so let's move on to Sunday. Around 5 o'clock in the morning, my dog jumped out of bed. She doesn't do that. She usually have to wake her up. She's about 8 or 9 o'clock. That kind of thing.
Excuse me, I'd like to object to as far as the testimony is relevant. The company's closed.
Well,
on the
it's relevant.
weekends.
This deals exactly with why I'm not.
Company's closed on the weekends, they close around 4 o'clock.
That's when things quiet down. So I don't know what's causing this.
Well, exactly, it's no showing that this is coming from.
I don't know what the council wants to do, but I agree with this gentleman. There's absolutely no linking. It's a wonderful
Let me
little
tell you
story,
what-
but the fact of the matter is, unless she has an expert witness here who is going to link all these things to the applicant, I think, it's time to move on.
I appreciate your perseverance with this, I realize this is lengthy, but
Well, it's not that it's lengthy, man, and I think council is sympathetic, but you can't link any of this stuff to
let
the
me tell
applicant.
you what happened on Sunday.
Did
In other
you?
words, it's, weekends are good because nobody's working, so I don't know what it's telling me. Here's the effect that had. My dog grew up across a whole bathroom floor. Wait a minute, it was vile. It was not food. She's on a science diet, very, very strict on everything, so that's nothing would happen. She's been like this in the house, shivering. I said, why is she reacting like that? Her hearing is super acute.
Yes.
All right, that's how it affected her. Me, I went up, walked in, clean up. That dizziness came back at me. Because the sound was so loud in the house that it affected that and me. It's affected the flooding as aspects. If that building is allowed to go to 16, and how many feet there? The one thing we gotta stop, I got to the point where I gotta get out of this house. I'm so sick about it.
Then,
I mean, I'm physically ill from it, it's affecting me. And they want to go 17 feet above in height, you'll block out even the sunlight. I would not, personally, I will not get into a variance to do that, because that is not right in the stream.
and man, that's not something that's before this council here. That's something that goes in front of the zoning hearing board, and you can make your complaints then.
All right. When is the hearing board? I thought it was before the meeting.
Thursday.
Pardon?
Thursday? Yeah, Thursday, ma'am,
At what time?
6:00 PM.
I was under the impression it was going to be for the regular board meeting this evening.
No, ma'am. They can't, they don't have jurisdiction to talk about that.
Well, it's not only a height, but I have to come to some kind of answer, since I don't know how things are produced there. I don't know if it's a generator, a compressor, or some kind of valve releasing. And this flooding is definitely, if they're gonna put in that many parking places, they're taking land out again.
Again, parking, if there is a problem with parking and they need a variance for parking, additional parking spaces, that's something that's coming up in front of the zoning hearing board.
So you cannot address all the problems that I'm experiencing.
Well, it can be addressed, but this council does not have that jurisdiction.
But you can, I know you have some excellent people here, and I know we have one of the best mayors that we ever had. Isn't there something you can do to assist, not only myself, here's, if you knew,
Not for nothing. Do you know what kind of heating system you have in your house?
or,
What's your heating system? The electric baseboard?
yes,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I have no devices, I don't have a computer, so I don't do hard that.
Some of the things that you're saying, a couple of us kind of worry about.
Where you just kind of look carbon monoxide.
The dog throwing up, also the kind of sound you just be a sign of.
She's reacting to sound.
Okay.
Okay? My body's reacting to sound. When you can't sleep because it's annoying enough and it's constant and it lasts for hours and hours and hours. I'd ask any one of you people, first of all, if you were going to buy a home, would you ever buy a home in front of a manufacturing?
Well, that's not an issue.
I'm just leaving you with something to think about,
Okay.
because toxicity might just, I don't know what chemicals are used. I do know that's supposed to be, that's a heavy ordinance, that's in fact, it's the same steel, that's a heavy steel.
Okay.
All right, thank you, I do appreciate your forbearance, and if there's any way you can help me, I sure would appreciate it. If I had a place to go right now, I would go. I just don't, I've only been 50 years and.
Oh, this is many.
Good to see you. All right, thank you.
Ms. Summers, for our first subject, please state what you're discussing.
Mark? MONTECAL. When I got that letter, it's gonna be, so they're gonna expand the building by about 30,000 square feet, right? 20 square, yeah, okay. So last year, everybody was in favor of the swale. It was, then a event, 100-year storm from affecting our place. I have videos from last June that took on that day. It was like 4 inches of rain. Right. It was 4. But anyways, it was overflowing. So when it was going down the street between Montec and Second Circle when it makes the turn, there's my brothers, my brothers getting swept. So what I'm worried about is that swales in it adequate, not for everything, sometimes it's okay. Not for everything. But, I'm worried about this expansion. Where's that water going? Because the drainage they have there right now at this point. You guys know.
So that's going to go before the planning commission.
They have to have a plan.
And they will have a plan. They are working with the engineers.
Anything over 5,000 square feet of new impervious development requires stormwater management, and it's not just, they don't just say we're putting in drywall and that's the end of it. That stormwater management now is dictated by borough engineering, it goes through borough planning, it goes through county planning for comment and review. And again, I fully understand that, I get your skepticism, I do. But I know the water community down there for a long time. With respect to that storm in June, that was much more than 100-year storm too, it's part of the issue. I mean, we never said it was good, that was probably more 500 when that came down to a bit there, and it was rough, and we never said it was good to address that, but I hear you. Now, I would 100% encourage you if this goes through and if you go through the process, I mean, by all means, hold us accountable. I mean, you have the planning commission, commissions doing their due diligence to answer these concerns, and they're doing their due diligence to make sure that stormwater requirements are being met or being met in a way that protects, both your home and then also the storage there as well. That's absolutely a reasonable thing. I think that the neighbor would agree that's a reasonable thing, that they're adding 30,000 just about square feet of development. They should have to address the stormwater the additional stormwater that gets created, or that runoff that gets created as a result of that. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure they'll say so, but I from my comments with them, I think they understand that. And again, it's not just a willy-nilly putting in whatever sort of stormwater you think is okay. It has to be specifically engineered to specifically designed to address based on what they're installing and where they're installing. And, you can't stick a dry well in front of the property that the water never even goes to. It's installed in a way that's going to address the flow of the stormwater. I totally get that it's easy for me to say this, and I'm skeptical. I get that. I'm not trying to take that away from you at all. You have every right to be skeptical. There's been a water problem down there for a long time. That is what would happen for any sort of final
construction. And when I saw that there was a 30,000 square feet, I said, oh my God. Here we go, we're back to square one. With all that drainage, it's gotta be accounted for on their property. And so,
On top of that, we spent a lot of money on that design that we did. And we're gonna make sure that our investments protected as well. So we're the planning commission in Borough and county.
I should have.
Not to leave.
I don't argue with you, I know on that specific storm and those storms, it was 7 inches in some of the parts of the borough, it was a lot of rain and
It was quick.
it was right over the borough, and Bloomsburg got like nothing. Other, my friend right around here got nothing, I don't know why, but the storm really hated us that day. And absolutely, now they carried, that system carried a lot of water that would have otherwise done, I don't know exactly what, but there was a lot more water that would spill over various properties. But there was also some that absolutely was that, because it was a lot of water in a very short period of time. It wasn't just, we saw the videos all over town, water going in homes that never get water. I got this much in my basement up in, up by the cemetery in Walnut Street, I don't get water in my basement, it was really out of the long storm.
But when it's in the home, we could revisit that, or enhance it a little more to take on this.
I think it's certainly,
These big storms are gonna be coming more and more.
not an engineer, so that's my lead on that, but I think it's, our engineer's not here this evening, but I think it's certainly worth going back and assessing. I mean, I can't speak for council's willingness to spend money on doing so, but I think in general, for investment, to say we're gonna put it in, at least assess if there's tweaks that can be made to improve.
So these are like 24 inches.
So when it gets to the choke point, essentially,
Right, and then all of it.
especially when we get that much water.
Yeah.
Without. I'm very clear on that, your concern lately at all.
You have anything, Mike?
Just one question for the objector. Do you have stormwater detention on your property where the storage units are?
Nothing that goes in the ground.
Okay, thank you very much.
It was, what, Keeps was your father started, that, right?
He and I started the company together
Yeah.
in 1982.
When did you put that expansion?
That was around
2007.
2007.
2007.
That building was originally a network warehouse when we purchased it. Around 2007 was the period where they put compacted gravel and a lot across the street. So that significantly exacerbated the runoff. So we're talking about water that primarily comes from other places and runs across that property.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you have a problem, yeah, because we have all the stuff that comes from Kmart and all that, it's going there, right?
And that's why the work was done.
Yeah. But then, when yours drainage, I don't think it was enough there to do.
So we can speak to that at the appropriate time. I will say that there's a wealth of information and documentation in the borough records for many years regarding the stormwater and the actions that we took. So that information is documented, not in my hands, but in the borough's hands.
Because I think that's when we started getting a lot.
Peters was involved in some of that stuff too.
There are pictures of that this past year of that flooding up to the top.
The video, oh, yeah.
So if we ever got a real storm,
Can we just keep this to what's relevant for tonight's?
Just in general, it's really, I know it's hard on her too, but when there's conversation in the audience, it makes it really tricky, especially if something like this sort of, just if we can try to keep it, and again, I understand that this is not the most formal proceeding effort, but try to see where we're addressing.
She's always for over social, what is the name of it?
Michael, Marty Calvo.
So you notified people, I didn't get a letter today until 3 o'clock in the mail. I don't get the newspaper, so that's my bad, but notification wise, I had none. Problem we have with water runoff, we never had a problem before until they added on to the building, that's when it started getting bad. Attorney Kepner knows, we've been talking to him for years. His reports knows, she has pictures of it. The problem is, nobody did anything, and then finally, what, last year, they finally put the swale in, and all they did, well, let me ask you about the swale, do you understand that? Why didn't they build it the way the drawings show? Well, I mean, they, contractors went out, they did the project the way it was on the paper, and you changed it. I mean, they have pipes, again, this isn't with this, but it's all part of the flooding. We have Montech storage. You put the swale there, we're gonna have accidents, people are gonna fall in the curb. Peters Consulting was the one who did the engineering, when they did that, had all the problems.
When we did what?
When you put the addition on the first time,
Sir,
So that wasn't,
can you say
I
your first
can-
and last name?
I'll do that. That was where you,
Can I have your first and last name?
now, Dennis Peters.
What were you?
So the thing is, folks, you're supposed to be speaking to council. There shouldn't be a back and forth between Mr. Montecalvo and Mr. Peters. You're really speaking to council. The council's gonna make this decision. Now, as was already said, Mr. Montecalvo, there is going to be a planning commission meeting where they will be dealing with the water problems and how maybe they can fix the problems that you have or any other problems that may come up. But that's really not something, council has just a set thing that they do here based on, the ordinance. And it's not considered, the ordinance doesn't have anything to do, with more here. That's why we put it in front of the commission.
so pretty much you're saying we'll probably get screwed again.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, Marvin should have a paper now showing where you're catching the water, shouldn't you? If you have a building, you should know about the runoff.
Essentially, what I'm saying is, it's not the jurisdiction of council to rule on that. But if you want to say your piece anyway, go ahead, but there shouldn't be a back and forth between you and Mr. Peters, or the applicant. If anything should be addressed to council. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not trying to cut you off.
There's not much to say, we're at the bottom of the hill, we got flooded, we got screwed. We talked to council about changing it, trying to stop them from putting the swale in, to move it over, they didn't do anything. So now we have people that could fall into the trenches, there was more reason to put it where they did. And now they put this addition on. Most engineers now, from what I hear, don't plan for 100-year flood, they plan for 500 years, we're getting a couple of a year, no problem. This couldn't take 4 inches of rain without coming over the top. Now you had the whale that surface area, part of the place gonna get flooded again. And what if they're complaining that I don't have gutters on my buildings, that's why they're getting flooded. That was really how the last one. So,
Yes.
I wanted to introduce Dennis Peters, who's the civil engineer on the project. Thank you for bringing him up. And I was gonna qualify him as for-
There's one in the front. There's one in the front, it's like, yeah.
Mr. Peters, what's your occupation and place of work?
Peters Consultants Incorporated, and right here, Peters Engineers Incorporated.
And can you please tell council about your educational background, professional training?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering from Penn State and graduate studies at Drexel Institute in Philadelphia,
How long have you practiced as an engineer?
1970.
We're gonna have to stop for a second. We just ran out of time.
I'm gonna need a lot more tape.
Well, you're gonna keep it short, right? I mean, I think council is stipulating your expertise.
This time I request the council recognize Mr. Peters as an expert witness in civil engineering.
I don't see any problem with that. So, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So let's just go back history a little bit, just like for 2 minutes, okay? This problem down there has been going on since I worked with the borough, even as borough engineer, and since for over 40 years, okay? It's documented. I have literally probably 4 lead-sized file boxes about the stormwater issues in that area down there. The stormwater pours off Poplar Street, it pours off Barrington's lumber yard, goes all the way out to Front Street, the back of Kmart, all that area drains down into there. Reynolds Trucking drains down into there, comes across Technoserve, comes across Montalvo's storage units, it goes into Park Place storage. It's happened forever, okay? Out of all the areas down there that contribute to that, there's only one party that's ever really done anything, and that's Technoserve. When they built their addition in, I think it was 2007, 2008, we designed a 200-year detention, underground detention area in the back of the property. And they spent over $100,000 to put in a stormwater system, which drains down into soil, shenango gravel and muck. It goes down in the ground and disappears. So they're the only ones in that whole watershed area that have ever done anything. Now, as far as what we're going to do, we've been retained to do the land development and the stormwater testing, stormwater design, and also the zoning hearing testimony on Thursday night. So we're going to do everything that's in Saldo, land development, stormwater ordinance, the county Saldo ordinance. So that's what we're testing on the project. So if anyone wants to look at documents, there's a million of them. I have every piece of paper from day one when I started in business. I've been down there with all the borough officials. I've been down there with Ray Parkins numerous times. About the only other thing we ever accomplished was running trucking with a couple driveways. And they don't work because they fill up with silt off the road and plug up right away. But as far as Technoserve, their system is working, okay? And 90% of the water comes from somewhere else. It doesn't come from there, it doesn't come from Montalvo, it comes from areas east of there. And there's all kinds of plans, documents, all kinds of files. If anyone has any questions, open any discussion.
I guess that's the question I would have. Do you think with you say you're going to comply with all the other ordinances, are you gonna be able to solve some of the water problems that have been voiced here tonight?
As far as the swale, I don't know anything about that. That's separate. That was done by another engineer. We have nothing to do with that, so I don't know what the issue is. The one storm event that we had, I know we had complaints, throughout town. Baja got complaints, Borough got complaints. I checked that out. That was a 600-year storm event, the National Weather Service. And I had 5 rain gauges, bikinis, some in the Borough here, one down in Park Place. That storm event was over 600-year storm event. One event last year.
So I have a question then. So since we get these storms more frequently, are you gonna be able to, if your plans say put in a 24-inch pipe, would you want to put in a 30-inch pipe in just to anticipate something down the road?
I'll shoot myself in the foot, but the Borough stormwater ordinance isn't keeping up with what's happening in the environment, okay? But, like, what we did at Technoserve, they had to meet like 25-year storm event. We put in a 200-year detention. So, I mean, we need to talk about that when we submit our plans for land development. Subsequent to that, we don't want any water running off, We're gonna put it under the parking lot, okay? We did that down in Surplus Outlet in Berwick Borough, for example. You don't see it, it's all under the parking lot. We spent $300,000 $50,000 now, so what's that? My storage units on 10th Street, I spent $50,000 on my storage units, to put underground detention in, so it doesn't run off into 10th Street or over beyond violence or anywhere
I
else.
just don't want something so big, and then 5 years from now, the neighbors come and say, this is the reason why we got water in their basement yards, because of such a big addition. And I wanna make sure it's
We're
done.
gonna retain the water on site.
So I would piggyback off of that, I mean, obviously, at first glance, it seems like there's an existing problem, and taking away, around to absorb the rainwater would only be adding to the neighbors' issues with stormwater in their yards.
We're not
Right,
taking,
but, can we finish? So, without going into great detail, can you briefly explain to me what your preventatives are gonna be to not only negate the problem that you're creating, but is there any plans to add on to the, already existing plan to help with removing that water that this property causes?
oh, absolutely, we've got to retain the water on the site, you know that, so we need additional underground storage. Basically, what we're doing, instead of having an open area with, this lawn on top, we're putting it underground into, perforated piping that stores it and then releases it into the ground slowly.
We had an engineer in here, who's learned a lot about stormwater drainage in the past year, so more than I think we ever wanted to. The issue with the perforated pipe was that it becomes clogged very easily, as we talked about the detention, being overgrown, it was explained to us that sometimes the regulations of perforated pipe become clogged after a few years.
The perforated piping is approved by DEP and conservation districts, they all acknowledge that, the main thing is you have to keep the silt out of it. And we do that by putting in, inlets with, some bottoms, so you can clean them out, they have to be cleaned out, do the maintenance type of thing. That would be part of the submission.
You would use a perforated pipe that would be used over on, where the driveway was going to.
And maybe it was locations that they,
Well, you need to keep the silt out, okay? Like in Salem, between Salem Township and Berwick Borough, we put in over 200 drywalls. We always put a sump in it, and need to be maintained and cleaned out. If you keep that material out of there, it's gonna work. That's the key to the perforated underground detention system.
Anyone else? Does anybody else?
Okay, thank you.
Just a final comment is, I wouldn't want the council to be misinformed that this is essentially a problem being caused solely by TechnoServe. There are other neighbors in the area, Kmart, Tractor Supply Store, people like this that contribute to the exacerbated water flow. TechnoServe has done everything they can over the years to cooperate with the borough and to be right by the borough, and will remain available to work out any future issues as they arise.
One thing I was kind of mentioning is when you mentioned practice plans, I think their development is probably going to happen there. Because as old as that complex was, they weren't required to stormwater redevelop, it will be required to actively address stormwater as well, which is not saying it's going to fix the problem, but it will at least cause it to help. Not just worth mentioning.
Sure,
absolutely. Obviously not part of it there.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Special counsel to discuss.
Does someone swear or affirm testimony will be
I do. My name is Ralph Schumacher. It's spelled SCHUMACHER. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Police Chief Rafferty, Borough Council, other borough employees, general public, and the press. As you know, Day of Valente, God willing, our free republic will be celebrating its 250th anniversary in a few months.
I'm sorry to stop you, but are you, going to speak on the, expansion of the Technical property?
I'm talking about the public comments. That's been
This
called
isn't the
out.
time, this isn't the time for that. This is a specific
Oh,
zone.
this is the, that's on that.
This, your time will be later in the regular council meeting, this is a zoning hearing right
Oh, I thought it was over. All right.
now. Thank you. Now you can motion carry. So we have a motion by Jay to approve the request expansion, a second by Mr. Woods. Any conditions? Any conditions, zoning?
They'll have to probably a condition on all other.
Right, correct. So then I will, there's a roll call, I will do a roll call vote, please. Starting with Mr. Ryan. Yeah. Mr. Jarrett. Yes. Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Triani. Mr. Mosher.
No.
Mr. Kirkpatrick. So there, will be granted the, I did, I just marked it. Okay, so their motion passes. And then I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion. By Jay, a second? Right? Okay, so the zoning.
A little bit of reading. Oh, they are, yeah. And who are these, sir? So that's about the clothing. Yeah. So what do you think? Whether they're. Yeah. Well. I mean, can you repeat that?
Sorry, my phone's recording right now.
It's old, yes. Related to my family. Yeah, my brother currently.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, you did get on earlier.
That's what it is for professional or it was apparently, so they're like, you know.
Yeah. I'm doing great. I'm doing good. Still singing. I'm still singing. Singing, singing in the shower. Thank you, sir.
May I have one?
So,
Oh, finally an update. Yeah, man, I've been staring at this place and I'm like, I want to know. I'll be right back. No, I'm I was just curious. Did you get it today? I tried to like.
okay. So,
Presentation.
Nice to see you all again. I'm just, so I handed out a little bit of an overview of the updates for you. I'm going to give you what I think you'll think of as the key updates. There's a lot been going on. If there's questions you have that I don't cover, feel free to ask them. But the key updates are, as of Friday, we are on schedule to have the engineering drawings finalized at the end of this month. That will coincide with wrapping up the construction documents to prepare them to go through the codes review. So we'll expect to be doing a codes review in April, pending scheduling with the borough on all of that. As that's happened, that process pretty much gets us ready to go to bid for the critical portion of this job, which is to build the new structure. So pending how that code review goes, and we typically do about a month of bidding. While that's going on, we have initiated the process to, we're shopping for our bridge financing. So the way that bulk of our grants work, you do the work, you pay for the work, and then you get reimbursed. So in order to do that, you have to have a bridge loan. So we had our first meeting with a bank to discuss what that might look like. We'll be going through that process at the same time as the codes review and the bidding. This first phase, until we have the bidding, we don't know exactly how much it will be, but we are moving forward with roughly a $2 million phase in mind. And that phase is intended to get us to a new cold shell, which basically it'll be a new building from the street. It'll be beautiful, and then we'll be able to take our time in the interior with the different sections of the building, starting with the teen center, then moving into the entrepreneurship academy, and then the restaurant. reason, all things pending how the next processes go, but it is within reason that we can be breaking ground in June, which will be a huge weight off of my shoulders. I'm sure you'll be excited to see that facade come down finally. As we go through the construction, we'll continue to do fundraising for subsequent phases. I don't know if there's how much more detail you want me to go into on what we've been doing over the last few months, but I figured that timeline was the big one you were looking for. So are there any specific things you'd like me to touch on?
So I know it's not a guarantee, but you're saying the end of June, you should start taking down the raft and start construction of the final project on the outside.
That's definitely the goal, yes.
I don't care how long it takes you to do the inside.
Yeah.
The outside looks like this.
It won't look on the record.
Well,
I just want to be clear.
The kids care how long.
I just want to be clear, it's not gonna look exactly like that. When you see the construction documents, you will see that we have made a change to the design.
That looks like the second picture, right?
Yeah. With but as we were going through the engineering and all of that, we determined that instead of having that porch on the front there, we're actually going to enclose it and put in a large garage door that can open and close throughout the year to create a little more flexible use. But also by having that garage door there, it changes the way we can use the interior. When we talk about a restaurant incubator, and I want to be clear, a restaurant incubator is intended to lower the barrier to entry. This is coming out of the Borough Blueprint Initiative, where there was an overwhelming response that people wanted more retail and more food. But there are barriers to entry. It's a tough industry. A restaurant incubator is designed to create economies of scale. It is not to provide a free space. So any entrepreneur that would be coming in there would be paying what we estimate to be market rate for the square footage of their kitchen. But there's economies of scale, and by having, think of like a food court at a mall where you have a much smaller kitchen and they can work together to bring in foot traffic. It's kind of that approach. So I think sometimes because of the way we work, we get a little confused about how our spaces are accessed. But these three kitchens are for private business to bring more food downtown as a result of the Borough Blueprint community engagement. They will be paying rent for those spaces. That is the last phase. Because it's the last phase, having that garage door also allows us to take an approach of bringing in modular kitchens. By doing a modular kitchen, you can purchase it as equipment rather than going through the process of construction, which will be a significant cost savings, but we would need that garage door in order to bring that in. So I hope that didn't confuse. I get really excited about this new approach and idea. So if that needs any clarification, please let me know.
Make the garage door look nice.
Yes.
It's gonna be on Front Street.
Yes. Yeah, I don't like the term garage door. I don't know how else to call it, but the idea is that it'll be glass, so you'll be able to see into the building.
So I like quick to state where it's
Yeah.
You see them in restaurants,
Actually,
food trucks,
excellent call.
That's fine. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not a garage door, it's
Right.
like a folding glass door.
Right.
You got three commercial kitchens.
As long as I can get the funding for them. I think I have the funding for one, as long as that approach is approved by the funder. So we'll continue to work towards the other two. Unfortunately, my Appalachian Regional Commission application was denied, so we'll have to try again.
No, it's funny, Rich and I took this idea to somebody 15 years ago. The guy said, that's the dumbest idea ever. And it wasn't much later that I saw it down in Philadelphia, they were doing it. And it was worth it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys went back.
I'm waiting to get approval on our approach to the modular before I share what it's gonna visually look like, but I think as long as we get the approval, you're gonna be really excited.
The idea, Josh, is just so I'm making sure I understand, the idea is to give, budding restaurant guy or girl the opportunity to try it out before they would go and open up a bigger space.
Right.
Right?
So if there's an existing food truck and they've been wanting to try a bricks and mortar,
Like the brewery.
like you go, or he did it, yeah. This could be a space where it would be roughly the same square footage of a kitchen as a food truck, but with a more consistent space, build a consistent local following, and it's just a lower barrier to entry, because you just have to be able to come in and cover the rent and your general operating costs instead of startup restaurants don't generally need 2,000 square foot restaurant space. And so this just makes it, they're paying for the space they're using. Any questions?
This, the important part is, we've got for 4 years so far. So the important part is making it look like something's happening.
Yeah.
And not say June, and then we're here next February saying it's gonna be June of 27.
The two big hurdles between now and shovel in the ground is the codes review and the bridge financing. There's a bunch of other stuff that we have to work on in the meantime, but those are the two big hurdles that determine do we put a shovel in the ground in June or not. So one of those will be coordinating with the borough and the code review, and then the other is grants. Certain reimbursement grants can be tricky to finance, so that's why we started about a month ago shopping. So. Okay. Thank you.
No 15,000 square feet, right? That's everything.
Same footprint. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Well.
After a long time.
Thank you for having me back. I wanted to provide some updates and ask, policy questions. So first, let me kind of time where are we with this, zoning project and when we finish. So my goal is to get a draft of the ordinance and map to being in by the end of this month, so not too long. So we made a ton of progress. We've heard a lot of what needs to be changed, and we're just kind of putting that on paper. So that'll be like a formal draft that will get to being there, once we're done in office, we'll look at it, kind of from that zoning perspective. Obviously, it'll come to you, for review, and, but that exact timing, Danny and I will work out, kind of maybe the day I deliver it to, okay? So then we'll get some feedback, through the month of April. I'm happy to come back to Borough Council and talk you through it. Maybe the end of April, sometime in May, again, I'll work out specific dates that being. Then, once we get your, initial feedback and we feel pretty comfortable, not that you approved it, but that you feel pretty comfortable that we captured your comments, we will need to get it to your planning commission, and we need to get it to the county planning commission with a formal kind of review process. You'll have a public hearing, and then you'll adopt it. So, we're looking, maybe June, July. And so, again, there'll be a lot of opportunity for feedback, for public comment, and we'll kind of look at all this. This is a big zoning rewrite, in a good way. I think the good news is from the feedback that I received from you and from the community, there's a lot of similarities, there's a lot of commonalities. I think a lot of the communities on the same page have opportunities to improve zoning. So that said, I wanted to kind of throw a few updates and questions at you tonight. Again, I haven't given you anything ahead of time, so if you're not interested in making policy decisions, please know that this is like a discussion. As we write zoning ordinances, it would be too painful to sit down and like go through line by line with you. And so when I ask questions, I'm trying to get the general feel for the general direction, knowing that everything can be changed after we get it in front of you, okay? But there's, you know, a bunch of new uses that we wanna make sure we incorporate into the zoning ordinance. One of them is, well, first of all, I wanted to just really review real quick, the different types of zoning uses. So when you get the use table, you're gonna see there's permitted uses, special exception uses, and conditional uses. Of course, we just went through a conditional use here. And at the end of the day, you guys get to decide, you know, for each use in each zoning district, to be permitted. And permitted means, and I apologize if you know this by heart, but I don't want to assume anything. Permitted means the zoning officer can issue a permit if it's a permitted use in that zoning district. Okay, so that's easiest. If they meet all the criteria, involved in the ordinance, the zoning officer can approve it. Then there's the special exceptions piece, okay, so special exception goes to the zoning hearing board. The special exceptions are permitted uses that require a public hearing in front of the zoning hearing board. So if it's the use you don't want in that district, you shouldn't make it a special exception. If it's a use you want, but you want a public hearing to make sure people can comment on things like, you know, noise or hours of operation or the impact on the community, that's a good reason to take it to special exception. So there's an opportunity to potentially put conditions on it. And then the third one, of course, is the conditional use, exactly what you guys heard tonight. And what I want to talk a little bit about the types of uses that you guys want to hear about in the future. There's no rule as to whether something should be permitted, special exception, or conditional use. It's completely up to you and completely up to who should be making the decision about the use. And so some of these uses that we're going to talk about tonight are these policy decisions have had something to do with maybe making them one of these three different types of uses. Any questions about the types of uses? You guys are familiar with that? So one of the things we want to make sure is incorporated into the ordinance is short-term rentals. And when I was here several months ago, and when I talked to the community at the public meetings, people were generally in favor of short-term rentals as long as we regulated them. And so as I thought about it, you know, as you think about short-term rentals, you have to, you know, make sure you're writing the regulations according to the municipality. And so I think the Borough of Berwick isn't necessarily a huge tourism destination, maybe like the Poconos, but there's a need for short-term rentals for, you know, maybe people are coming for the weekends or maybe some of the development that's happening, if there's, you know, construction workers that are here, et cetera. And so as we think about short-term rentals, we also know that you guys, I've heard that there's, you know, housing shortages or a need for more housing. And so we want to make sure that we're regulating short-term rentals so that too many of your existing housing units don't get turned into short-term rentals, therefore taking housing off of your market. So balancing that all out. So, you know, as I took in all this information, I was thinking, you know, let's think about maybe, you know, of course, short-term rentals need to be licensed and inspected, kind of like the rental inspection program. I think they should be permitted by right in your residential zoning districts, but I think you should limit them in terms of density. You know, so that again, and one way that municipalities are limiting them are by a distance. So like, you know, only 1 per 1,000 feet, which in your community would be like every 1.5 blocks, every 2 blocks, maybe you could have one. And you would control it by the rental housing program or the short-term rental program, which, you know, if there's several complaints, people can have relationships with both.
Similar to how we do our rentals in general, on a slightly scale that we're not going to know every single, we won't ask every single tenant to register and give you our rentals right now. It's very similar to that program.
So there are communities that are saying, you know, so first come, first served, basically.
Control it by.
Because in Salem, there's one, I believe, the guy owns 2 houses side by side, and they're both short-term Airbnbs or whatever.
Yeah, so,
I'm just,
Yeah, I don't know what the advantage of that is.
I don't like the idea of us dictating where the market.
I think the advantage, that's or the oil of disadvantage, what is disadvantage is not risking too many. We're trying to problem too many family homes that we don't market. If we're in a place where we didn't need more housing units.
I think that's what I'm saying, I mean, is, if everybody says I'm not sure from that, was, and then they're not filling them, pretty soon they're gonna go back to being regular. I don't know what I'm comfortable with.
I think
Because I sit at this table. to decide
specifically,
how much-
specifically looking right now, when we're looking at potentially having a large number of relatively short-term residents in the greater Berwick area, which will then, from construction, which will then dry up in the years to come, that's where it's, and again, at the end of the day, it's ultimately seven of you, but there definitely are a lot of communities, I think, who wish they would have, put some reasonable limits on these. And one thing we did talk about was the idea of a grandfathering, for lack of a better term, essentially a grace period in the beginning that if we do pass this, where you plan the first month or two and you don't get held to that, it would dictate into the future. So if somebody has been operating an Airbnb or Borough or whatever for however long, just come and get it registered right away. It's not a problem, we're not going to know how close you are, but then progressing, of course, but again, ultimately, council is not a concern, and it's not to be a concern, but we won't regulate that.
I think that you're not restricting at all until after Amazon is completely up and running. There's gonna be a huge need for them now, but not down the road. So, Salem isn't even on wide open, and they're filling up as fast as they use it. There's over 1,200 people up there. Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
all.
Yeah,
But
we're-
what we did-
Yeah.
It will over there, and it'll be years.
It's gonna be years, but
Yeah.
right now, there's massive need for it.
I told them they're coming in short term.
What about, another restriction that, was thinking about was how close the owner had to be to the borough, because, to prevent investors from, California. So like having the owner live within 10 miles of the borough. Oftentimes, people always have a manager within like 10 miles. But I'm throwing it out there, maybe the owner, so that you guys don't get investors from all over the country. Which also. Is that okay? And then the other thing too, this could be, just to put it on the table, a lot of places in residential districts will make these like special exceptions. And I'm just gonna put my opinion out there, I don't love that, because when something goes to special exception, you get to say, oh, it's gonna have a negative impact, the public can say it can have a negative impact on my property. Well, you shouldn't really be predicting that there's gonna be a negative impact, if there can be parties in that property. You know what I mean? The way to deal with that potential negative impact is to have a strong rental inspection program or a way to revoke the license. So just, I'm proposing if you're gonna allow them by permitted use. Yeah, to allow them by permitted use, but make sure that, the program can revoke licenses if the landlord, for whatever reason, is not screening or, allowing people to be part of that.
Short-term rentals, landlord community policy is a good idea. What about regular rentals, long-term rentals? I mean, so you require this without a property manager.
I'm sure you probably do, it's not in the zoning ordinance, but,
But I mean, you're not gonna make that change.
no, I'm not saying. Okay.
I'm saying 10 miles.
It's just a number of
Maybe 20 or
probably,
30 miles.
right, so we can definitely negotiate that, I was kind of looking at a map, 10 miles goes quite a ways from the borough. I thought,
It's air miles, not road miles. So it makes sense if we do this.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. Again, these are, discussion items. We can change everything once you get the actual copy in front of you. So the other thing, we've talked a lot about is needing to, consider adding accessory dwelling units. And so that's that second unit on the property. And, I heard a lot of positive comments. Again, I think what we need to do is make sure that, that the setbacks and the building coverage and the impervious coverage makes sense. The accessory dwelling units can be in a dwelling, and we would put in requirements for like maximum size. It could be in a garage, or you could potentially, have a little, I don't know, bungalow on a property.
Like what they would, like a mother-in-law suite.
Like a mother-in-law suite, yep, that's, I think,
But
another.
again, as long as it meets the required setbacks and lot coverage.
And one of the things I thought, making sure that the principal dwelling is owner occupied, so you don't suddenly create two rentals. Not putting restrictions on who can be in the dwelling unit, because oftentimes the older ordinances in the seventies will say it has to be the mother-in-law or somebody, who needs care. So maybe allowing anybody to be there, but the principal dwelling has to be owner occupied.
So what was that? So if I owned a house, I could put a little house in the back. I had to live in that,
You have to live in the primary
in the
house.
primary.
The thought process being that if you're in the primary, you're motivated to make sure that the secondary is not a disaster.
Right, because I was against putting little houses in for the fact of rent to own.
This helps you, and also you will subdivide it into unless it's meeting the standards of a full size, it has lesser standards than a regular standalone home as far as size and whatnot, but you would have to actually subdivide it and meet full zoning on both halves of that subdivision if you were going to rent to own a house.
Yeah, but some people don't know the loopholes of rent to own, and they could just pay rent for
And never,
something that they
no, you could never actually.
own, that they're not.
There will definitely be some extra work, sorry, for codes to, especially early on, get this all rolling and regulated, but
Just as long as there's no one that not everyone's up to date on.
it'll be very important that the messaging in all of this is, starts with Susan, we need you to really blast out the truth here.
So the secondary structure, with the cottage or whatever you're calling, that would be a rent facility instead of somebody else owning it, because then they have to. land.
It would be owned by the property owner. So it's one property owner, one parcel, one property owner. So you don't have to charge rent, you could charge.
But they have to live in that primary residence.
Yeah. Again, another fun thing to enforce, but it's okay to put rules like this and control for, the problems.
But would that be us writing the ordinance for that? Like if, say I sell my house to you. No, not you. So I just want the wording to be right, that it's not.
It's not gonna be in your deed, it's gonna be in the ordinance that the property, that the principal structure has to be owner occupied. And I can imagine that, the rental unit will be part of your rental program, so you're gonna be able to communicate that like you typically would, I don't know how often you do rental inspections or how often you require that location.
Registry yearly, and generally speaking, our rule is if it's a family, it's not subject to those inspections or registrations, so if you have your mother and mom.
But we have to make sure, if I own it, and I say, Teresa, you want to rent to own my house, she thinks it's owning it.
No, but he's saying that you might have some bad actors who would,
To rent to own it, she thinks she's owning that house, and then she subleases it to Tim in the back, and now you have two families on the same.
it will definitely require some,
As long as that rent to own is not in there.
Yeah, it certainly won't be in the ordinance, what you're suggesting is a very interesting thing, how to manage. But the ordinance will be there. Sometimes the implementation of the management is honestly not easy.
It should be something that's owned in Borough.
Okay.
It should be something that they can't sell that additional rental unit. They can't subdivide and sell.
Exactly, right.
For
You
somebody
can only
to draw.
subdivide it, they might be,
I mean, if they made it big enough and they were able to meet zoning on both halves of the subdivision, that's fine.
That's fine.
But if it's, we're talking to these smaller
there's gonna be a
units.
maximum
Nelson
size,
could do that.
they're gonna be small. The idea is to put two properties, right?
Utilities are all going to be attached to something.
The utilities, you have to make sure the water and sewer are attached. Yeah, they'll be all, the building codes.
And there might be a restriction that it's all up to, it needs to be on one, yeah. Maybe that's one of the restrictions to help mitigate some things.
Nowhere to own.
There's no trauma or anything.
I wrote it down, okay, so another thing, family daycare, and so you have two different types of daycare defined are permitted by special exception in the R1 and R2. They're not permitted in the R3. And so, again, as you look at, special exceptions are completely acceptable. What I personally don't like about special exceptions is they're expensive. They have to be because of all the costs involved with advertising and things. I'm to look this up.
We only charge 545,
Okay.
which
so
is,
it's not
which you're actually losing money
You're
on.
losing money on it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's $1,000 to $1,200. And so you think for a family daycare, that could be a couple months of their daycare income, right? And so, again, what I wanted to ask you about is, I heard that there was a need for daycares. Do you want to make it easier to have a family daycare in R1 and R2 and add it in the R3 as permitted? You think about, okay, so how do we regulate this? I don't see it in your ordinance now, but you might actually apply it, that they have to be licensed by the state. They might have to have a certain amount of outdoor play activity or play area. But I just wanted to kind of get your feedback on if you want to make it easier or not.
I don't know who I think,
The state regulates over 6.
Over
Yeah, more than 6 you must have. Under 6 you can babysit all day long.
Or think you can sell a license?
No,
Like,
you don't need a license under 6.
okay, I apologize for that.
And we don't necessarily.
Somebody's babysitting their house, I don't think it's anybody's business, really. That's their own business. So, I mean,
You have to have it.
Okay, yeah,
they have
probably.
more than- they have more than-
State that.
Yeah, they have more than 6, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, we're talking unrelated children, and this isn't grandma watching a couple different sets of grandkids. But still, I mean, yeah, you're right.
We talked way back, when you were first here about being more messy, right? Back in the 70s, it was all about controlling, and as you're going on, and that's an easy number. Somebody is watching 5 kids in their house every day.
Unless there's no problem with the kids. No problem.
That's the only one, make sure there's no problem, at least have it. That's the one to have a situation, right? And I'm not saying that you should allow it, I'm not gonna say that, but that's the one thing in the back of your mind.
Okay.
So the R3 on the South Street, that's an R3 high density because of the industrial, the IDA?
That's an R3 because, when the map was made, there were a lot more, there were 3 units, houses were packed closer together. I remember that before, the first blueprint round came through, I think those houses tend to be more multi-families, right? A lot of them aren't anymore because the new houses were built. But it was more compact, more like a three or more unit.
So right now it's an R1 and R2.
Right.
So what if it's R3?
That's where I don't think there's any reason why it couldn't be. It's R1 and R2 because in 2003, that's when somebody decided to make it.
Okay, so if you're staring at the map,
It's not a much. And that will pop up.
you can kind of look, you have some R1 up here, out of R2, R3, R3. That we talked about, but then R1. So, and your zoning follows most zoning ordinances again, where the R1 is typically single family homes. The R2 is single family and duplexes. And the R3 then allows multifamily. Let's start talking about the R2 and the R3. So, one of the things I wanted to propose is potentially blending the R2 and the R3. And we would control for density again by lot size. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to start putting up multi-family dwellings on a small lot in the R2, but if people wanted to combine lots, or if there were large lots, that there would be an opportunity to, again, fill in some more density, or just have more flexibility. I think probably a better way to say it.
Our current ordinance requires 1,700 square feet per unit for your three on threes, but that's the smallest number that we have. But point being that So you couldn't take a, 4,500 square foot lot and put 16 units on it. That's what
We'll
you're saying, the
propose-
lot size control, what they're gonna be.
I'm doing some analysis right now with our GIS technician, to understand how many of your existing lots are perhaps non-conforming that happen to arise. And propose new minimum lot sizes and densities, for your zoning district. And so that data is gonna come this week. That's something I'll share with you when we put the draft out there. With the idea of just making it appropriate, feel a lot like it is now, but maybe, having fewer nonconformities, and allowing for a little bit more density. The other thing that we're analyzing right now are your vacant lots. So you have, a number of lots that aren't built on. And so again, if you think about, creating more housing, one way is just infill, it's just kind of promoting development on vacant lots to the extent of property owner wants that, but it's more about, the zoning ordinance, more about creating opportunity.
We're not the only one.
A lot of those ones.
We have probably about 20 lots that we have liens against that, now that's a number of them could go in that, in the resale. Judicial sale, there's really terms for right, the recent judicial sale, which does clear those liens. So there's a number that we have, that we and other entities have more liens on for years and years that did recently change hands, so there's hopefully years to come. Soon, coming years, that we'll start to see some development on some of those lots. Finally. We never, if we haven't seen the pay that yet, we never know. So
At least get them back.
that's the goal, yeah.
Right, and then make sure that your zoning ordinance allows for strategic development, so people aren't going for variances just because.
And part of that, those lots, I don't know, I guess because of them, but some of them have the setback issues.
Right, so we want to, yes, exactly, so that's why we're doing the analysis now to propose setbacks and lot sizes that align with how your properties are subdivided.
I've got nothing against trailers, but I'd much rather see a nice two-story home on these lots versus somebody parking a trailer on it.
We'll get there.
We can adjust the setback for doing that.
Okay, so no major heartburn, again, it all really, the big thing is the lot sizes, so that final, I'm not having you make a decision tonight. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up is, the R1 typically only permits single family dwellings. And, I wanted to propose maybe permitting two family dwellings, again, if you make the minimum lot size. And the R1 is actually gonna have a larger minimum lot size, and if you are gonna permit two family dwellings, the minimum lot size is gonna be even larger. But it's allowing for a little bit more density and, allowing people to maybe even convert single family dwellings.
Here's some houses that were designed for the family of 5, 6 kids that can very easily hold 2 families now if somebody really wants to divide it into 2 units.
But if it's an R1, it's not.
Currently in our way.
That's kind of what I've been hearing, that's why I'm bringing it up. Okay, another thing, is non-conforming uses. Again, your ordinance is very typical, but if someone wants to change a non-conforming use or an expanded non-conforming use, it goes to the zoning board for special exception. And in a borough like this, there's probably a lot of non-conforming uses, there's a lot of non-conforming lots. And there's a cost and a burden to taking that extra step. And so, as ordinance is modernized, they're allowing the zoning officer to make decisions if a change of non-conforming use is, equally intense or less intense. Or an expansion of non-conforming use meets the requirements that are already in the ordinance, that they can only expand by 30%, then a zoning officer might be able to approve it. And then the way they're written often is that if the zoning officer has any question about intensity, they take it as a special exception to the zoning hearing board. To kind of throw that out there. Sometimes people love the zoning hearing board to make those decisions, or you're worried about a non-conforming use that you're thankful finally shuts down. So there's more than one way to look at this, but it can be expensive and time consuming if someone's, making a quick vote.
What does the zoning officer think of that? I don't know.
Well, I can see a bad side to it too, because if we make a decision that the property surrounding property is unfree, but then they can come and say, and question, why did you do this, why did you do that?
We'll just blame you if we want.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think it's-
That's the point of it.
I think it's a matter, it's on automatic, there will certainly be some that will absolutely need to go before the zoning hearing board. There will be some that are just so basic, it's not to maybe encourage it to happen, but it's to empower it to happen when it makes absolute sense. I'm gonna sit here in a moment and talk different examples on the front of the day, I'm probably blanking on the example of what that might be, but, geez. A non-conforming use currently in some of our residential, I'm sorry, some of our commercial zones would be house. There are some commercial zones that do not allow a home. So if somebody were to want to put, say, a small shed, that is an extension of a non-conforming use, and we tell them, we need to go to the zoning hearing board to get a special exception, accurate, right? To get an extension of a non-conforming use. Listen, if they want to build a relational garage, we should probably take that before zoning. If they want to put in an 8x8 shed to store their lawnmower in, what are we doing here? Let's let them have their shed. If it's,
I wouldn't know.
Or if a restaurant changes to a beauty salon, I think the restaurant, again, it depends on the specific instance, but the restaurants are often have a more intense use in terms of hours of operation, and maybe number of clientele than a beauty salon. And so again, saving the property of the tenant, the property owner, the $500 to go in front of the board. But again, it could be their months.
and the places where this makes sense, we're talking about small local businesses. That's where those that might not make a difference. So we're talking about, the big national chains, our small businesses are real small.
You might have a problem, though, who makes the decision as to whether it should go before the board or not before the board.
That's the question.
I mean, I think-
Based on the size of the structure or some
So when it's
criteria.
expansion, it has to be within the 30%. Your ordinance currently says 30% of gross square footage or the use, as well as you can only expand it once. So honestly, your existing regulations, I think, are fine, but I think the zoning officer could apply them. If it's more than 30%, then they would have to go for a variance.
I think it can be as simple as saying, hey, we let the zoning officer and the borough manager have to come to a consensus on it. It's a negligible impact to allow it. And if they can't agree on it, then they'll say yes, this goes before.
And there's like,
Obviously, I won't be here forever, but I can tell you if I have the out and say, put it on the side.
I do this all the time, and honestly, I have a new house, because I don't want to be the one called out.
Right.
But there's certain times that it's very obvious that it should just be a zoning officer decision.
There are also many times when Kurt over the years has been called out that you're making me go for a hearing for this absolutely stupid thing, and I'm sitting on a table, zoning, everybody's wondering, what are we even doing here? Like, this is so simple, so.
And I can share with Damien, the non-conforming worksheet, so that the applicant actually documents maybe hours of operation, the change of that, or the change in customers, or the change in delivery. And so the applicant is part of their application that they have to be honest about is putting that on paper. And so you can hold them accountable to if it's not right, if suddenly there's deliveries at 3 a.m., that sort of thing. Then that's a reason to revoke the time permit.
The one thing with this decision too is it's very easy, at the last possible second, say, no, we thought before we changed our mind, we're actually not comfortable with it. This is a decision that Jen has to go back to it and, work 13 different plausibilities on. It's either yes or no, but it's about 30-second edit to change it one way or the other, correct? I mean,
Right, yeah.
So, think about it, but we don't.
Okay, so then the other thing, really, the last thing besides a couple comments, this is, again, not necessarily a decision for tonight, but this is out of your zoning ordinance, it's the list of your conditional uses. So these are the uses that are coming in front of you now. And, both these uses and your special exception uses, I think just need to be evaluated. You can come up with the same list, you can tweak it, you can send something from conditional use to the zoning hearing board. There's no right or wrong answer, but, you know, I'm interested in your feedback. Like tonight, and the language in your zoning ordinance, again, is very common. The ordinance was written by, a person who's written a lot of ordinances up here that I've reviewed. And they send, the ordinance states that, you know, over 15,000 square feet of development comes in front of you as a conditional use. You like that?
Not tonight.
And to be clear, it's not, do you want to make that automatic, it's, do you want to, is that a thing that we should be sending to the zoning hearing board as opposed to council?
That tonight was an extra hoop that people have to expand their business and expand how many employees they're gonna have. It was an extra hoop.
And things like, the concerns about the flooding, as we acknowledged during, as you acknowledged during the hearing, are addressed during land development. So nobody's going to build 15,000 square feet of anything without the land development requirement. And so there's a lot of things that are addressed there, right? And so you think, why come here? What would be a legitimate reason for you not to permit? Land development has a lot of controls that are mandated by the South, as well as public hearings to get kind of input on that sort of thing. But again, as we think about taking, applicants through either conditional use or special exception hearing, there's lots of reasons to have a public hearing. There's lots of reasons not to. Things can come up that are not relevant. And people can be swayed just because there's a big crowd, but is that sway, valid? Are the comments, you know, according to the zoning ordinance, are they, providing, you know, a negative impact to the community in a way that's, as your attorney suggested, that's, that a subject matter expert can actually back up. And so again, we want our communities to be able to provide their input and their public opinion, but according to law, again, people, you know, zoning dictates what you can and cannot do with your property. And you have to be fair, and people have to have legitimate, reasons and identify adverse impacts in order to be able to say no to something. That said, you know, putting conditions on things, like acknowledging, a community members' concerns about a corner store that stays open until midnight. The conditional use hearing or the special exception hearing allows you to say, okay, we're fine having that use here, but let's shut it down at 8 o'clock. We're turning your lights out so you're not pulling kids while people are trying to sleep. So I'm not saying one or the other, I just think it's, as you review your zoning ordinance, it's a great time to reevaluate what's permitted, what's special exception, and what's conditional use.
And I do think, you know, we talked, there are certainly something with conditional use list that I don't think council is going to be in any hurry to let go of. And mobile home park would be one that immediately jumped out to me, but I have the applicant say, you know, on that control where the mobile home park might pop up. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you guys on,
I
but,
think the definition was, you know, we had to hear because you want to put two mobile homes.
well, but
And that's not a park.
except for more than one-on-one.
Well,
If
that's
you would have
what-
subdivided, it wouldn't have been, but you, yeah. But yeah, I mean, then what things on here are there anything on here that you're either willing to say should be allowed by right, or at least should be, or let it go to the zoning hearing board as opposed to council? And then and again, all of them, we don't decide that this evening, but this list at the bottom of the page that we just passed out under section 705. Now, take a look at that and actually, you know, think through what things am I okay with saying the zoning hearing board can decide? And what things am I okay with saying is allowed by right? The one that comes up is the shopping center in C2 district, so a general commercial. Now, I'm not going to sort of the exact definition of community shopping center, but it kind of feels like a community shopping center is the exact thing that should go into a general commercial district. Maybe I'm crazy there, but that just kind of feels like common sense to me.
Retirement housing complex. You know,
So,
so like that, why are we talking?
district.
If they meet all the other requirements, why do we need to get it's still.
But what about the one saying you want that country? say that. Well, yeah, at some point it needs to get said here. So.
Jerry, I'll say.
Would you like me to say it, Gary? We'll discuss it.
We'll discuss that later, we'll talk about it in the car.
Yeah, so what about the person that owns a business uptown that wants to put an apartment on top and go higher? I don't know the whole story, but I remember a few years ago, someone wanted to go higher on Front Street.
Yeah. Sounds like anything,
But that was denied because of, it couldn't be so high downtown. But there's a building, there's a building at Second and Mulberry that's higher than 2 stories.
Well, you know, things are there, they're there, but what we can evaluate is height.
I think what you're saying, Thomas, it doesn't make sense to limit it because it's already right there anyway. You're not arguing the bank is wrong. You're saying it's already there.
Like if someone wants to put something on top of King's.
Yeah. And that's a
I think there was
conversation.
something there before, wasn't there?
Or even some of these,
And there was at Harry's and there was they were all like 3-story.
Right,
tall.
but now they're not.
Fire, well, that's because of the fire, they had to, the tops of those buildings were unsafe and they had to take them down to the basement and on the single floor then. I don't own the store then. I know that.
allowing for residential units above commercial spaces in the downtown is certainly a big conversation. And again, we're talking about this, that's a conversation we have. I know that parking is the big subject that are always going to jump to as far as why it's not allowable, and I can't make a decision for any of you for as how important that is. But I mean, there is absolutely space in the downtown, buildings in the downtown that could have apartments above them, either in existing space or yet to be built space. But currently, it's not.
That was the reason why it was allowed, because it was residential. And
I was
residential
wondering
wasn't allowed in the C3.
If it was residential.
You can go 5 stories or 75 feet in downtown.
Because it's commercial.
Because it's commercial. So you can build.
So if you wanted to build 5 stories of commercial space, which is at one point the overhead was at least 3 stories plus a basement, but. One of the total. At one point, it's much bigger. There were a lot. But the idea of doing good. They have more housing than currently issue. And again, parking is the off-site reason for why that's not okay. And then, you know, again, each and every one of you will decide how much of an issue you think parking actually is. I have opinions, I'm happy to share everyone's ask, but that's a view. There are some that have existed for some time.
When we started the second blueprint, there was a gentleman, consultant somewhere, and they were talking about parking downtown, and he said, listen, he said, Berwick does not have a parking plan. He said, you have a perception. Should enforce it. He said, they have a parking. He said, we're gonna do it.
Berwick has a parking problem, depending on what time of day you go there.
It's a perception.
It's not a perception, you can't find a place to
The
park, it's not a
perception that
perception.
if you can't park in front of the business you're going to, you know, park.
Right.
But if you go up the block or you park on Second, Street, you're going to park. You know, I get that. But we should try to find some kind of.
That's where you're going next, right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I was, like, big feedback, so we'll land somewhere and we'll talk about it in land. So when I present, I'm gonna present a use table, with new uses that aren't incorporated already in the ordinance, and then, with the zoning districts and whether they're, permitted by right, special exception, conditional use. So you'll see it right now, it's throughout your ordinance, so you'll see all in one chart, and so it'll be really easy, to at least see it, not necessarily. Okay, so then I just have a couple, comments, talk about the first floor, or housing above first floor. Talk a lot about allowing neighborhood-based businesses. Currently, they're there, they're part of that conforming. And, the draft language that allows for neighborhood-type, businesses on corners. I found a way to, legally do that. So usually you have to apply ordinances, uses across, a zoning district evenly. but I've seen other examples where, you can restrict where neighborhood businesses are, so where you currently have these non-conforming businesses, maybe they can become conforming, but potentially I heard from everyone, so then the types of neighborhood businesses. Of course, we're gonna update definitions and get new uses in there. And then the other, big, interesting topic these days is data centers. So we'll make sure we incorporate data center language into the ordinance. I'm gonna propose it in R2 again. So, or I2.
And just to be clear, because I was gonna say, this is not a, this would not be an education, this would be it has to be included somewhere, this would not be a by right, this would be a by conditional use, this would require a much more intensive bit on what would be required to never happen. I don't see a world where, barring somebody really documenting everybody in the DIA complex, where that happens, but also you never get together, so there's a lot of stuff that we need to take to protect against that potential, unlikely, but potential future. So it's the dirty word right now, but it does have to be addressed in the code.
We'll do it in a responsible way.
I1 or I2?
Yes.
I2.
Not C1?
Just a complex.
I mean, there's a data center going up right.
Right, but like,
One single small building.
One single small building, and that's a data center.
Right, but like C1 out there where Bear Dodge is, on Pine Street, if someone were to put a small building that's a data center on, like Bear Dodge,
There's a lot, that is right next to, that is more residential around it than.
no, I'm just,
The complex, and again,
We only need one place. We only need one district that says yes, it's a special exception, Shannon.
conditional use.
Conditional use.
Council will want to say on that one.
Yeah, I'll hit that.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Please feel free to contact me or something to Julian.
When you come back, will you have the synopsis of this for us?
Yeah, I'll present.
Not just the permitted use, but like the chunk.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, when I come back and present, you'll get a draft, that will highlight the changes, but when I present to you, I will go and kind of highlight the changes in more detail. And so that we can talk about the things that were changed and make sure we're all on the same page.
We'll get all the stupid stuff out.
Well, you can let me know if we get it all done.
so I have one more question.
Yes.
So, back in January, I think it was January, they came about Code Blue shelter for homeless, or the Code Blue for cold weather. Is there somewhere in here that is gonna be designated for something like that? Because they're using a fire company?
Yeah, I talked to
And
Daniel
it's
about
about-
that earlier this week. Honestly, I haven't figured out what to propose to you, if you want to propose something to me. But I need to study your map a little bit more and propose,
Obviously, we've had them two different locations over the last 2 winters, once over Eagle and once at.
Right, but they both came here to,
Right, so, but then a big part of it now is to decide what is the appropriate place, so that nobody has to come here in the future. And there has to be an appropriate place because it is use, now, by right, it can be by special exception or conditional use, but it does need to be reasonably allowed somewhere on that. It does not necessarily wrong, it doesn't have to be a full zone, it can be an overlay specifically for, we don't get too many overlays going on there.
right, there's not, I think where it currently is in R2, we don't have to interrupt the R2. So the solution to that would be an overlay or to find.
It's actually a,
like the I2?
I think it's an I1
Or
right
an
now.
I1.
But it was an R2 and it was in your building is an R2, right?
Yeah.
My zoning is an R2, but it was originally a factory, so.
Right. But it is an R2, whereas the rule is in that section of the I1 that kind of connects from the different parts of Wise and other things.
So I'm open to feedback on that, but,
like, maybe I2 where,
And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a whole, if there's a more specific spot that you think is appropriate,
you don't have to be like, oh, I don't, this part of I-1 looks good, but I don't know that part of I-1. An overlay is an option where you, so if it's I-1, you have essentially a code blue, or you hear that's an overlay, so they thing all the time right now, where you make someone do a whole zone of that's an overlay, you can do a brand new use where it's an overlay. You can't over spot zone it, like you can't be like, oh man, I'm only gonna give them this one parcel that's never usable at all. But if there's a more specific section of the borough that you think is kind of appropriate, you can designate that with a overlay specifically. Again, it doesn't just highlight the second, but it's something, it's a use that we know needs to be addressed and be appropriate because of what we're thinking
Okay, again, always welcome, for any feedback, when you see the draft, so that I'm happy to adjust.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, I know it's working, so you take care.
What's your last name? Glory.
Okay. Citizens correspondence and personal appeals for agenda items only. Anything that's on the agenda, are you
On the
going to talk to
agenda,
us about what's on
You're
the
talking about zoning, so that's on the agenda. It is, you're talking about it.
There was a hearing.
Well, no, this, the zoning that is, how do you pronounce it, Glory?
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I want to discuss that. So as you know, our Free Republic, Day of Lent, God willing, will be celebrating its 250th anniversary in July. Our founding fathers, who were very imperfect men and women, they had the idea that there should be a great deal of input from the bottom up in government. So there was a meeting at the public library discussing what we've just been all listening to for the last half hour, 45 minutes. Poorly attended by most of you, I'll be honest. But having said that, so I'll be very straight to the point. To make one specific comment, as far as the owners of B&Bs and that, I think the restriction shouldn't be mileage. They have to be a resident of either Reserve or Columbia County. Plain and simple. If you live in Columbia or Reserve County, you can operate their own B&B or short-term rental. But more specifically, this change in zoning is going to impact people for years, decades, and even generations. Anyone who has a connection to Berwick. If you're a business owner, if you're a property owner, neither of which living in the borough or obviously residents. So having said that, I'm a graduate of Pennsylvania State University, and I've been involved in a number of things with politics and law over the years. Having said that, for example, in Center County, they have numerous non-paid, voluntary citizens advisory boards. Even though it is late in the game, supposedly, but having said that, there should be a citizen advisory board of volunteers consisting of stakeholders, business owners in Berwick, whether they live here or not, people who work in Berwick, whether they live here or not, and obviously people who live in Berwick, whether they own their property or not. There should be a citizens advisory board to be working on this project extensively. Now, you will have the final vote, as it is in Center County and many other places in Pennsylvania, United States. But this is too important an issue. There are lots of details to be covered. People have interesting input. My late father, Mr. Robert A. Schumacher Sr., a decorated American World War II veteran, and my late mother, Ms. Marie A. Schumacher, were involved in land development in Orange Township. I've worked at the grassroots level in that with their company businesses years and decades ago. There needs to be greater input, not just a couple of hearings where people get up and talk,
we need to have a citizens advisory board to look at any proposed document that comes from Ms. Glory's firm. Tens of thousands of dollars have been spent of the taxpayers' money to retain them, to hire them to do this project, which is appropriate because it involves a lot of specialized knowledge. But we should have a citizens advisory board to be active in this process before a final draft is made and before you all vote. You all will vote in the end, but we need that input to look over it. I am quite happy to go over a proposed ordinance line by line, because it will impact, as long as my wife and I have a connection to the borough of Berwick, it will impact us and anyone connected to us, indirectly or directly. So I'm calling on the borough of Berwick Council to create, to put that out to the public. I was very disappointed that very few of you came to the meeting at the public library, and many of the people there thought the idea that I proposed then was a good idea. To put that out to the public, and the requirement is that you're either a business owner, you work in a borough, you live in a borough, you have some connection in the borough, and you can be part of this Citizens Advisory Council to assist in this process to create a document that truly represents the will of the people. Some of the people that have connections to Berwick, it's inconvenient for them just to come to a meeting like this or a hearing or whatever. But this is going to affect people for a very, very long time until the next major revision, and who knows when that was. The last revision, I mean, there are ordinances passed from time to time. So quite frankly, and to the point, I'm calling for a citizens advisory board, non-paid, volunteers, not costing tens of thousands of dollars, to work with the council, to work with the firm that's been hired, retained, to create a zoning document that you can obviously amend, decide what you want to do with, and ultimately it doesn't become law or whatever until you vote and approve it. So that is what I'm calling for. There are a number of concerned citizens that have, I've talked to, that have expressed that they would like to do that.
I'm sorry, you're talking about, that we hear 5 minutes.
All right, well, I pretty much covered it.
Thank you.
But again, a specific suggestion would be that owners of not short-term rentals have to live in either Columbia or Missouri County. That's very specific.
Is there anybody else that would like to talk to us about anything that is on the agenda items?
I just think it would be fun.
Reports of committees. Mr. Mayor,
No, that's right.
anybody? Go ahead.
Let me quit. 2 months ago, that house on Fifth Avenue that it was approved for, it was okay to tear down. 1200 Fifth Avenue, emergency tear down, just waiting for bids. Also, Frank, the administrative search warrant, have we got anywhere with that?
Yes, we have, I'm working on it right now. I got all the documents from, the magistrate's office. And I had meetings and, Nicole. The real, what we decided to do is to start with, one particular property that I'm not gonna mention. At the meeting, we've gotten some feedback there, and I would say within the next 2-3 days, have a complete draft for the magistrate. I think there's one. You betcha.
On the bond report, Gloria was on cruise, she was still in the landlord, she can't get a flight home till tomorrow morning. And I always type up the report, I got to see her to see if there might be any changes, and anything that has to be done. And I wasn't able to do that, so I will, in the next report, list the changes, okay, for this report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anybody else?
Real quick on safety, Reagan and I met with representatives from the Rhode Island Association, having a conversation as far as safety, knowing that fire police are at this point, it's not seeming to be having, had a really positive preliminary conversation as far as the partnership. And that's going to be most difficult of all of the ones we talked to speak. Did that one first. We're gonna circle back here in the next month or so once they have a chance to go through their volunteers and talk about the steps we can take. But they do understand that they're only be a part of the solution moving forward to keep the race safe. I mean, they get where we're coming from, we get where they're coming from. It's a great partnership with the community, so we had that initial conversation and we keep moving forward with that.
One quick thing, just go through. Dragon, over here on Trevor, 17th Street, I don't know what lot number it is. There's one that's condemned closer to the road. Last night when I was coming home, there was lights on in there. Today the letter was still taped to the structure, so I don't know, I believe that's a police issue. If they're in there living or after hours, I know there's exceptions if they're cleaning or working on it, but that's something that we could look into to make sure that they're not living in a condemned.
Yeah, so like when we get calls for anybody in the structure, the officers will go out. And we do try to be pretty lenient, especially if they are in there, they're cleaning, they're fixing things. That's the idea.
I come there almost every night and it's dark every single night till last night.
I haven't seen
Quarter
anybody.
8-ish,
And now
very
we want
dark once in a while.
Yeah, but if we're starting to get that feeling that somebody's living in there, that's usually coordinate with codes as well. Or the neighbors calling me here today, hey, nobody's supposed to be in there right now.
I just want to let you know that I didn't. Just keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Business not ready for action, parking on East Fourth Street.
But a couple of more that I know we've done this before, again, recently, as far as large vehicles having a hard time getting down the streets. Jack had a family where it's not able to be here, but I know it's been an issue with the plow and recycling trucks. It's not an all the time thing. It's largely dependent on, what size of vehicles are parking across the street from each other and sticking too far out, like if my car on the street, so they feel. You have to do pickup trucks and it's a much bigger issue. So, there's not a perfect solution. I know there's not a perfect solution. I realize a number of homes don't have off-street parking, which is why they're parked on the street. But the biggest concern is what happens if it's when they come to a fire truck, they can't get down the street.
Yeah, we're talking the one way on 4th Street.
The one way, so we get past the one. Yeah.
We addressed this, actually, Knowledge Strong was there, I was fire chief then, I probably go back to 2005, 2006. We addressed this same issue, and came forth at council decision, and they were gonna at the time do a one side street parking, because last night, the very after we bought the new ladder truck, why it was, I took Molly for a ride.
That's how long ago you did that? The new ladder truck was a new ladder truck.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, 2001, I've been here all the time. I get old. But that was an issue back then, and in fact, we were still down at the old Jackson place before we were on that night, with all the residents, because of not having off-street parking. And if we have.
We had that 4 or 5 years ago here too.
We have to carry groceries, however we want to park one spot, maybe halfway down the block on the other side. It was a long issue, but it is definitely an issue. And we talked about the fire service too, that hopefully if there's ever a fire there, that hopefully the surrounding people start moving cars and stuff, because I mean, we can just barely get up through in some spots, you can't really open the door.
Yeah, I'm gonna test to be tight. We were running our triaxles up there the other day. It's tight. It's passable. It's doable. But it's tight.
But I just kind of, that's kind of an issue for
Over
20 years. Yeah, I say you were on it, you were sitting there.
What if they happen with some of the folks happen with
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, we have a problem, obviously. What are we making a bigger problem for people that live?
I think it would be because 3rd Street is all apartments on the south side. The north side, not everybody has off-street parking. Let it go.
But you can't dictate the size of the vehicle, like everyone has a Damien car, no problem.
That's, I don't know, I think we can try the ordinance, showing as a micro machine like me,
One
but.
thing I might suggest is Google, we're comments on, see who has driveways and, which side of the street really has.
I mean, the north side would definitely have, if not driveways, the north side all has rear alley access. Doesn't mean that they have all street parking designated, but they have the capacity to.
Some of them do.
The vast majority have rear access, not all, you're right. I think on the corner specifically, there's sections where there's another house on that corner, but once you get down to one half, it's three.
They're saying some trash trucks run up there 3 times a week.
I mean, the
Liquor runs his trucks up there 4 days a week.
what triggered this was a resident who's trash but putting up the street.
What's wrong with trash now? Yeah, they get their own company.
Consent agenda. Oh, fire department training, sorry. Fire department training facility.
Yeah, we talked about it once, a couple years ago, and kind of went on the wayside. Fire department has asked if we could consider the idea of a training center adjacent to where the old incinerator is, which would be downriver from the incinerator, not on the incinerator itself is, but this used to be a driveway there. Yeah, so when you go up the driveway, make a right, and Jack's got some stuff up in there, but it's a flatter area. If we could use that, I don't know if DEP would let us, but if it's something that we would like to pursue, then we can ask the fire department to come back with what they would like to do. Give us concrete plans. And
Some of the things that you talked about, Bob, just clear the right, like, building up, or like pool burn center, just clear the land. Finding group, they said there too, that they would approach you for training and stuff. You get some of the old big steel conex boxes and stuff, maybe have pallets, so you can actually have some burn, to just do in-house training. It won't be opened up for out and stuff, but it's just have a place for a lot of these younger guys come in. It's fun to get classes anymore, they're really, and go wait for it and stuff. And it doesn't hurt to keep our guys refreshed.
There are areas down there that are not flood zones, that's the big issue. Everything's flood zone, storage units,
Right.
but there are sections that aren't flood zones, so if you want to steer toward those sections.
Right.
you guys can write up a formal proposal, what you're gonna do, and where you wanna put it, and bring it back to council.
And it's one of those things, we could probably just put it through codes and zoning and
Yeah,
planning.
no, we'll sit down, Yep. So we have fireworks coming up this week, we'll sit down and have a team and put together a approach plan, drawing and stuff, so. Yeah, thank you, Bob.
The consent agenda. Motion to accept the consent agenda from Mr. Ryan. Second from Mr. Lewis. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Approved. New business, consider take action to accept Barry Isaac Associates Incorporated as crack soil reconstruction, stormwater design plan proposal project number 313824.002 in the amount of $57,000 with cost to be split evenly between the borough of Berwick and the sewer authority. The discussion on this?
I did get a hold of her. She had not seen it yet, because I thought she hadn't considered it yet. But she expressed no concerns on her end either. I have no concerns on it. I mean, this is the last part of this 4 projects. We're going to Isaac because they've done an excellent job with managing the program for us and getting us through. And it's full with relatively few headaches. We do the grant to cover a portion of the construction. Plus we have funds on the side to cover our share as well. This is covered. So I really have no reason not to recommend going with it.
Is this like a phase 2, or is this going
This
over
is
what was already done?
This is on the other side of the test stretch. This is going down along pretty much right along the border there between Berwick and Borough. It will be contained entirely on borough-owned property. There will be no need. There may be a small construction easement on the field next to it, just to literally have things sitting during construction. But as far as actual where the project will be located, entirely on borough property.
Motion to accept. Motion by Ray, May I have a second, please? Mr. Leonard, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Say, all those in the aisle say aye. Motion passes. Any added items? Discussion. Citizens correspondence, personal appeals for non-agenda items.
John Smith, Spring Garden Avenue. First, I'll start off by saying, 8 weeks ago when I spoke here, I got the opinion from a few individuals that I was a pain in the neck and I shouldn't be here complaining about the rats in the neighborhood. That's what I observed from a few individuals sitting in there. But if you lived alongside, 50 feet away, you'd want something done too. And it has gotten worse. I ran into Mrs. Fish and her husband down at McDonald's. He showed me a picture of 2 new rats that they found. They had an odor in their trailer. They brought an exterminator in. They found dead rats in their trailer. Just 2 weeks ago, last week. Last week, she showed me the pictures of the rats that she got coming out under the shed. They brought an exterminator in. They put more traps around their property. Well, I was out in the yard, and Cookie and I talked, and her husband, and so I went out, and I didn't say a lot. Didn't say a lot. I just listened to the exterminator and Cookie talk. They were doing a lot of talking. Exterminator says, you can do whatever you want around your trailer. If you don't take care of the rest of the lot, it's not going to do you any good. Now, you got one guy absolutely denies the fact that there's rats. You have another girl that said, yeah, we don't have rats, but yet they put bait under the porch. There was another one in there that told Cookie that they can hear them in the trailer. They are not in the trailer. They haven't been there for 2 weeks. I don't know what they went on vacation. I don't know what the deal is. They haven't been around. So I'm not a tech savvy guy, so I got looking on Google. Oh, rats will travel up to 300 feet away. We're 50, 60 feet away. Pat's 80, 90. There's other people. We don't want them. They'll move. Do you know how rats will multiply? 3.5 weeks, they'll have a pack of baby rats. 6, 8 at a time. Maybe 100 in the season. This is not me. Whether you believe Google or not, that's what they're saying. They'll climb walls. They'll chew wires in your property. That don't sound safe to me. That don't sound safe. But yet, Mom said 8 weeks ago that the people in Milton said they were going to send an exterminator and set traps.
So that was at the one 1855.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was 1855 because that's what you were complaining about before. But
No, I never complained about 1855.
I
No, I never complained about 1855.
I
I
thought that
complained
was-
about right
I
across
have,
the street.
I have a picture that I was going to show Kurt later of the rat issue that you're talking about.
Yeah, I do as well.
So I talked to someone and there's a picture of a rat next to, on Bowman Street. Those trailers.
Bowman Spring, that's not 1855.
I thought
No, that's not
they
1855.
addressed somewhere else.
Where that rat is, that little shack, that we call the shack where Jim used to live, the little white place, that's 1800 Spring Garden Avenue. That little place is 1800 Spring Garden Avenue. The other 2 trailers, I think, I don't even know what their addresses are, but I think they're Spring also. 115, 117, and 119 Bowman Street. But the White House is Spring Garden Avenue. Yes, there was a dead rat there, and yes, it was Craig Harkins took the picture. I was there when he took it.
That's where I thought we were talking
No,
about.
but I'm talking at Bowman and Spring Garden Avenue.
I know what you mean now.
Yeah.
So,
We are in a number of fights with that specific mobile home park owner about a number of things. I certainly hope I didn't give you the impression that you were a father. I don't know if you're who you're referring to. I know, and you made a comment clarifying that you haven't actually seen rats in some time. That was confusing. But if I made you feel that way, I don't know.
I'm not gonna say, and I'm not gonna say nothing about.
But what I will tell you is that we are continuing to fight with that specific mobile home park owner over a variety of issues. one of the things that we kind of blazed through quickly in the consent agenda was updating ordinance to better allow us to address those issues. So I recognize that it's frustrating when things don't happen quickly.
Yeah.
And when we have folks who are not at all local, and in some certain circumstances, it's even worse, but it's a constant fight. So, and you know, again, you had said at one point that I haven't actually seen rats in quite some time. So the hope was obviously that they had taken care of it. Obviously, that's not the case. There's visual evidence and you're seeing, and you experiencing otherwise. So it's time to get back on that and add that to the list of things that we are addressing in those few little home parks right in that little area that you're talking about. There's a couple of parks right in that one little spot there. So we'll put that back on the list and we'll get right back on it.
It is not just that one trail. It's not fishing. It's just not that, it's the trail part. And I bet you one of the things they said about, Google said about rats is stuff piled around. And I complained about that one outfit, it's there, and they just keep piling stuff there, yeah, they're still doing out a lot in the truck. But they completely denied the fact. And the health issue part of it, just the feces, just the urine, just the rats themselves in there. And you know, last July 29th, I received 2 letters in the mail, one registered, one regular. And I was here about this, and they said about my cinder blocks with a 4-foot stake painted white. It was a hazard that somebody fall. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I admit to it. But those rats are a hazard too.
And therein lies the problem where you elected to be a responsible homeowner and take care of your problem. You didn't make us fight with you. We have how many property owners who will dig in and make us fight
Absolutely.
and fight and fight. And I know it's frustrating when you choose to not be happy, but do what we ask you to do right away. And it's really frustrating when you see people not. And I know it's frustrating. It looks like we're not doing anything, but that's not what's happening. It's just the steps that we're taking to do are a lot harder when someone like we don't like you who just says, whatever, I don't like it, I'll take care of it.
There's nobody more, I don't think, on this table more than me that wants to town out. Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
I'm talking about,
yeah.
but it's, like, we all say Kurt doesn't do anything. Kurt does things, but it's the court system that. Right, so I thought I'd come in here and clean up. It's not a right thing, so.
Yeah, it's just, when I see on Google how fast they would walk.
It's just.
When you said that they hired an exterminator, I missed the part, was it the homeowner that hired that exterminator?
115 fishes. They hired an exterminator, yes.
But the resident, the other party.
Yeah, and the exterminator said if you don't clean everything else up, you can set all the traps you want. They're still there. And they're paying out of pocket. It's not, they're not coming for $50 a trip. I don't even have no idea what the charge is. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Yes, long time. Peggy and I were just talking about how long ago it was, and it was a lot easier. Yeah. But I just want to say, I'm not going away, but it's my community, and it's my house, and I check it all the time. I check the garage, I check my house, I even watch Pat's, alongside of Pat's house for him, and I have not seen any holes, any signs, anything over there. I got the cat food, but I don't have a road. I shouldn't have to go away. You shouldn't have to go away. I do like the fish. I do.
As long as there's a food source there in that area, which there is, you probably won't have an issue with them coming across because they have what they need to survive there.
Yeah, I was surprised when Google said animal feces is a food.
Oh, yeah.
I clean up every day, every day I go out and clean up, and the sky's out, I go out and clean up. But it's just, I don't know, it's not gonna get better, when I see how fast they multiply, I say, boy, are they in 117 multiplying? And people from Milton, they absolutely don't care. Absolutely don't care.
Seriously.
Well,
Like,
Okay. Thank you.
thanks, Tom.
Not only in the crop fix, you brought it up. I'm spending a shitload of money on designing something for her.
I'm just throwing it out there
I'm
to
working on
cover everyone.
I am working on a whole sort of stuff. An emergency shelter situation for like fire, code blue, EMA, all that. And a couple, you asked me to do everything by the books. I'm doing that.
I just wanna make sure we're in a good zone for, like,
All my
Quaker,
neighbors
New
were good
York.
last year, were they not? If there was an issue with any of my neighbors, but I think we handled it. I just
So
want to
make sure while we're doing the whole zone right,
I've talked to her too, and she said right out, I don't know how to do it.
well, that's why.
Well, that's because you weren't quite sure what all you were doing. That is, once you're short, it's hard to zone something.
I'm working.
You're
on
not
it.
clear on what the business is. Like you can't hit a moving target in this case. So, you're not the only person who's had that frustration, but it's like, if you can't give clear on what the goal is, it's hard for us to.
My goal, the whole social service hub, I've been meeting with every agency under the sun, VA, you name it, CMSU, all of them, trying to figure out how to bring everything to Berwick for the people of Berwick in one location. Well, that is what I'm working on. I got most everything drafted, everyone wants to see, they already get this app. We're working on the mechanics of the things now, so the time consuming.
I'd like to see what this is for.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm not sure, Don feels. I think that he feels that we are, here for something, but I'm not sure he feels that we're really trying to do anything more to eliminate the problem.
I feel that we're riding the money and water can't get anywhere with, not with Don, with the folks that own the property.
I totally agree, but can we again do what we have done, would that even help? I don't know, I just feel that we gave them an ear to that.
I'm sorry, I think we did.
I feel that you're walking away, that we gave you an ear, but we really didn't say anything that would help the situation. And I'm looking for suggestions of what that could possibly
Nelson,
be.
the answer is, again, the first step of it is correcting the ordinance, which is part of the consent agenda. And until I have that ordinance corrected, then we can't do anything. Getting that corrected, so citations can happen appropriately. And then we get the citations happening appropriately. And then if worst case scenario happens, and they refuse to move forward with anything to do, you look at pulling their mobile home park license. Now, again, the first step is making sure that we're citing in a way that the local magistrate says works, and that's how we have to correct this to follow what the local magistrate is asking for, is for us correcting our ordinance. That's the first step. And I get that it feels like spinning wheels. I mean, let me try to be patient. We don't like to jump to citing. We got to the point where we had to jump to citing, and we got from the magistrate, this was the way that it's not going to work the way it's written. So now we're refixing one word in the ordinance so that we can cite and get.
And I think if I were Don, and I think everybody else agrees that because of the process that's needed to accomplish what we want to, it seems like it's going to turn.
Yeah.
It's government. Turn slow.
It's turning, and again, this is the big step tonight, and then passing that amended ordinance, advertising it, passing it, presumably 3 weeks more back to again. And then get the citations refiled, assuming things have not been corrected in the meantime, and again, show that we do business with it, and it's going to be a fight, it always is, but. Actually, our ordinance says that the mayor can allow a temporary shooting range, so.
Not on my watch, buddy.
Well, I tried.
Okay, following the Berwick council will be in an executive session to discuss the following: specific fire department personnel and potential litigation related to the reimbursement of prepaid home grant funds. We will take no action during this session. Or following. I'll take a motion to adjourn. A motion by Ray, can I have a second, please? Mr. Wood? Meeting adjourned. You want me to go on?